If Facebook memes are to be believed, and I don't think that they are, but let's say that they are, there are two types of shoppers out there. Maybe you're more like me, one type of shopper, or maybe you're more like my wife, a different type of shopper. Now, when I go to the mall, I know what I need, I know what I want, I know what stores I want to hit up, and I am in and I am out as fast as possible. Now, on the other hand, my wife, she turns shopping into a bit of a day trip. She makes her way around the whole mall. She likes to stop in any shop that catches her eye. She loves to browse. And so this difference, like husbands shop this way and wives shop that way, while that kind of difference makes for a really fun joke, it actually speaks to an underlying principle that affects how you market your business and how you generate leads for your business. Because the truth is that some people out there are hunting for a solution. They are on a mission. Their job is to get in, to find out what they need, and to get out as fast as possible. Others are willing to take the time to browse around, to research, to watch things, to reach out to people, to call them, to pre-qualify and do all of that work. And so for those potential customers who are out there hunting for a solution, those who will not take the time to browse around, or to watch videos, or to ask for referrals, or to even reach out to you to find out if you're a good fit or not. So the question becomes, how do you make it as clear and obvious as possible for them to see that your company is the company they've been looking for? They don't need to go any further. They don't need to spend any more time. You have everything they could possibly need. Now that is exactly what we're going to explore with today's guest, Jacqueline Woods. Now, Jacqueline is a highly accomplished and experienced marketing and communications executive whose career highlights are seriously impressive. Listen to this. She served as the global head of customer segmentation and customer experience at General Electric. Following her time at GE, she was the CMO of IBM's Global Partner Ecosystem Division, where using this client-centric data and using analytics and the type of stuff we're going to cover today, Jacqueline and her team increased the ROI of their spend by nearly 40%. She's also served on Nielsen IQ's executive leadership team, and today Jacqueline is the Chief Marketing Officer for Teradata, which is a cloud analytics and data platform for AI. Now, that is a very brief snapshot of her remarkable career, but it goes on because she's also been named a marketing visionary by Marketers That Matter and one of the most influential CMOs by Insight's Success. Now today, she's going to share tips on using customer profiles to make your marketing more effective and to create a simpler sales process based on different buyer types. So welcome to How to Sell More, the sales podcast for non-sales people, where each week we give a master class to help ambitious B2B leaders tackle the biggest challenge every business owner faces, and that is growing revenue. I'm Mark Drager. Let's get into it. So Jacqueline, you have an absolutely stunning career in marketing, in insight, in customer experience, in what we call segmentation, being able to understand a company's prospects and audiences and clients, breaking it down to different people and different use cases and different ways that they may choose to shop with us. You've worked at global companies like IBM and General Electric, and today you're at a company, Teradata. And what I noticed right away when I was looking at your website, your company's website, at your marketing, is Teradata is in the world of AI, which, if I can be blunt, is kind of confusing as hell, right?
Yeah.
Like, what does that really mean? And yet, when I come to your website, to your organization's website, and I see how we can help, and I click on the button, how we can help, I see that you break it down by role, you break it down by industry, you break it down by solution or use case. And suddenly now it's clear to me that out of every different type of company, in every different situation, and every different user, I can very easily self-select where I would fit into that. And it may seem like a very simple thing to do, and yet so few organizations are able to connect those dots. They assume that the target or the audience or the user would just kind of figure out where they fit in all of this. And yet you have done this so well. Can you share with us a little bit about why this isn't so important? And perhaps based on your experience as a global lead in segmentation, perhaps this is something that comes very naturally to you.
Yeah, Mark. I guess I would say, first of all, it didn't come naturally when I first started doing it. It didn't come naturally at all. It wasn't something that like I kind of woke up and it's like, yes, we should have segments and we should be specific, because I think when you think about marketing, people tended to think about mass marketing and kind of getting as many messages out to people as you could. But the world has become a much noisier place than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It is a much noisier place because you have so many channels that you can get information from. So I think if you are getting information from many channels, you have to be really precise in terms of trying to target who you're trying to talk to. And you want to meet people where they are and you want to help them in an easy way navigate to your information. And I think that's what's really critical. So when you think about it, if I mean, we didn't have as many social media sites as we have now. We didn't have when you kind of think about even ad tech and the way people talk to each other, think about LinkedIn even 10 years ago. Think about that. Think about it 5 years ago. It wasn't the marketplace that it is now, of the way companies actually talk to customers and try to get them to kind of pay attention. And because I think the barriers to entry are so much lower than they used to be for people trying to compete with one another, you have to be very specific about who you're talking to and why you're talking to them, and make it easy for them to find you and find information out about you.
And so when we consider these different types of roles, and if I go to your website, I can see that for our listeners, it's broken down to business leaders or versus data leaders versus the scientists or the engineers who may be using Teradata's platform and software. So it's broken down into decision makers or more C-suite people. It's broken down into the actual users who may be leveraging the system. And then when we go to a different type of segmentation, when we think about industry, there's financial services, manufacturing, retail, healthcare, there's all the different industries. And then finally, the solutions might be broken down based off of the different type of customer or the different use case where you might use it. These three buckets, the different roles for the person who might be exploring your system or your service or your offer, the different industries where you work in, whether it's super high level or it gets very, very niche, and then the ways that one might use your service, your system, your solution. If you're listening to this, it's this kind of strange matrix that breaks down the different types of people, how they might identify, the different places or industries they might work and how they identify, and then the different ways they might implement your software. And as you mentioned, Jacqueline, this is not simple. This is not easy. I have found that many of the people in the organizations we work with can get lost in the weeds of knowing, okay, when we start to go down this rabbit hole of all the different industries and all the different use cases and all the different things, it can become too much. Do you
It
have a
can be.
natural way you approach this or a process you approach this where you find
Yeah.
that Goldilocks just right kind of approach?
Yeah, when you think about it, what you just said, just even at its simplest form, was kind of this three-dimensional matrix, right? Which was roles, industries, and kind of type of solution. And when you think about it, what someone is looking for as a someone in the C-suite or a senior business leader, they care about really one thing. Now, everyone will say we care about more things, but honestly, we care about one thing. And that one thing is really growing your top line revenue. And so when you think about talking to someone, that is what they're thinking about. You have to frame the conversation that way. So they're not necessarily interested in the solution at that point. They're interested in ways companies maybe like them or in adjacent industries. How have they grown their top line revenue? And have you helped them do that? And kind of how do you frame that? Now, someone listening to this is going to say, well, people want to manage margin and they want to manage costs, and all of that is absolutely true. But what people get rewarded most for is acquiring new customers and kind of growing your business. Now, you obviously want to do that profitably. And so you have to think about that is the first thing that type of individual is looking for. So that role is a very different role than what the CIO is looking for. That role is a very different role than what a digital officer or an analytics person is looking for, because they're looking actually, how does this solution fit into the context of the other software that I already have? How do I marry these two things together? How is it easily integrated? So each of those people is looking for something different. And the reason that you generally do an industry lens is because there are some industries that are very much alike. I mean, the one great thing about working at GE, when I worked at GE, was like it practically covered every industry. I mean, at the time, it's a much smaller company than it is today because it's broken, they've broken up healthcare, et cetera. But back in the day, it was like we sell everything to everyone, including light bulbs, appliances, in turbines and financial services. So you really had to kind of think about what was it that you could use in similar use cases that you knew people were looking for that may be adjacent to another business that you're actually talking to. And that became really important. And that's really something that I really learned at GE, because they were in so many industries, but the industries did a great job. The businesses, whether you were transportation, oil and gas, appliances, commercial aviation, they did a good job of understanding what are our similarities. And then how do we take those similarities and talk to the types of customers we have that have similar needs. They did a great job of doing that. And so I've always been a person that really leaned into industries and really telling stories about how do you solve complex problems and how are those problems very much not just your only problem, but the similar problems that everyone is trying to solve. And I do find that people learn from other industries and they like understanding what other industries are doing and then adopting some of those behaviors for their own selves. So that's been something that I really like lean into.
You're giving away one of our greatest secrets now. Over the years, I founded my agency in 2006. And at a certain point, I added up, I wonder how many industries we worked in. We worked in 29. And I can't tell you how smart you look where you take something that's fairly standard practice. It's just everyday business in one industry and you bring it to another and suddenly you're blowing everyone's minds.
Well, and there are some industries that have a lot of similarities, like retail, consumer packaging, and finance and banking. Actually, and I mean on the what I would call the consumer banking side, have an awful lot of similarities that when you kind of get down to it, just in terms of, and then when you think about those similarities to even telecommunications, because everyone's looking at churn and customer acquisition and how do you, and then you can move that over to media and entertainment, because who's better now at thinking about how to have subscription services? 12 years ago, that wasn't really a thing. Streaming wasn't a thing. You didn't have people having subscriptions for streaming. That is just a new advent of the way that people sell telecommunication services. And so all of these types of industries, I think, do learn from each other. And then you can even translate that to software as well, because think about it, we didn't have, quote, software as a service, which, by the way, is just a subscription, which, by the way, is just cable TV or anything that's like that, or buying your gas and electric services and other things that kind of have similar kind of pay by the click or pay by the kind of a certain type of usage and a certain type of metric. And all those things are very, very transferable to one another.
And we're starting to see this. I mean, We don't talk a lot about your consumer packaged goods or things like that, but gosh, the shift of the automakers in the last few years to try and move people to subscription services for features that are already built into their cars. You pay for your heated seats, you get them. You stop paying your
Yeah.
subscription, suddenly your heated seats turn off. Or we look at farming and agriculture with John Deere and all these companies embedding tons of technology that farmers can't even service themselves. It's the moats that these organizations are building around themselves to turn everything into something we don't actually get to own is pissing me off a bit.
I thought I was annoyed with the heated seats because I kind of felt like really like it comes, it's a feature in your car, just like anti-lock braking or something. It's not, if you live in a cold area, you know what I mean?
Oh, I know what you mean. I live in Toronto. I know what you mean.
But I do believe that um, people are definitely decrementing services and decrementing products in a way that kind of forces the buyer to kind of really sit back and say, what do you really want and what value are you getting out of the item that you're purchasing? And I have always been a person who said that people do not value all you can eat. That is why buffets have gone out of style. If you think about the brunches that people had, you go back 15, 20 years, those brunches on Sunday were in, you had your mimosas and it was all you could eat and all this. Everyone figured out that you could never eat as much as what people figured that out. So, this really thoughtful way to sell and have people purchase what they really want, I do think works well in some industries and for some things. It doesn't work well for everything. I do think when people buy a car and you get a vehicle, to your point, I think most people are expecting that the things that are coming in my car are the things that I purchase for my car. I get this XM, Sirius XM. That absolutely should be a subscription. That is not something that you have to have. That is an option that you can purchase. But it's like picking out a letter in the alphabet and saying, Mark, if you really want that letter E, I think you're going to have to pay extra for it. And people are like, I need all the vowels, not just one of them.
Well, can you imagine? Not only are you paying a subscription one day just to use the air conditioner, suddenly it's a heat wave and now there's surge charging and they're charging even more to use the AC because it happens to be a hot day. I mean,
Exactly.
Who knows where it'll end, but I am curious. So if we consider these different segments that you have, again, by role, by industry, by solution, are these simply for you in your role as the leader of marketing and presumably sales and revenue generation? Are these operational personas as well? Do you track whether some industries are outperforming others in terms of cost of acquisition or close rate? Do you look at whether certain roles lead to better decision making or higher closes than others? Is this an actual, are these not necessarily specific attribution models, but are you using these personas or roles as well from an operational point of view?
Well, specifically, we have some propensity modeling that we do, that we actually look at um, companies and places that we've done well, whether that's on industry, whether it's on size of company, whether it's on type of solution that has been deployed. And we will actually put that against our prospects and opportunity set to really see where we should spend more time. We absolutely do that. In fact, it is something that I have data scientists that work for me, and which you should not be surprised about. I have a whole data science team and I call it marketing. It's called revenue optimization, where I'm actually looking, because I'm really looking at the dollars that I'm spending myself and where should I most likely place them in order to get the best return for the dollars that I'm spending. And there are things that people really like. It doesn't mean that generates the highest return. People love doing in-person events. We definitely all miss each other. It's like we've been, we had 3 years of kind of not being around people. And so now people have always loved doing events, but events aren't necessarily your highest performing marketing activity, quite frankly. And so you always have to have a combination of what is it that I should do to figure out what my highest attribution activities and tactics are, and then have that balance in my marketing mix to figure out where I'm going to be placing my bets. And I'm always going to place them in the place where I feel like I'm having the most optimization.
And does that by nature skew decision making to the activities, tactics, or decisions that can be backed by data and
Yes.
eliminate, I guess, maybe some of the potentially positive, but the other ideas, the other campaigns, the other investments you might make, but may simply just be one or two steps removed from being able to attribute, this sale to that activity? Does it cause a bit of a bias?
Well, no, because we track every single thing that we do. And some things, even if they don't have as high of a return, some things you do because they're strategic to do. You need to show up at XYZ conference because it's strategic for your company to be there. It doesn't mean that you're going to get 1,000 marketing qualified leads at attending that conference, but it means that you are part of the ethos of your industry and community and peer set. So if you don't show up, it's obvious that you're not there. And that may be, and giving off a signal that's not positive. So some of those things can't necessarily be 100% accounted for. Like, I'm going to show up at something because it's the right thing to do for the company. It doesn't mean that I'm going to have the highest return on that particular investment. So you will do things like that. But by and large, the majority of the marketing spend that we have is 100%. I'm looking at those levers all the time because it has to do with what my media buys are. It has to do with, what we're doing on LinkedIn and other places or other channels, and which channels are going to be the best channels for us.
I'm glad you mentioned levers because often when I'm working with business owners, I explain that really we're a brand strategy agency and we help with segmentation and we help with branding and we help really create and craft unique messaging and differentiation. But I have a whole bunch of different levers I can pull. And so a big part of my responsibility is trying to determine, out of all of the stuff I could do, what are the things that will make the most immediate impact with the lowest risk, with the highest possible rate of return. So that's the way I look at it. And so you mentioned these levers you could pull. If someone listening to this does not have a CMO in their organization, they have a marketing team, they have a sales team, they have a head of marketing, a VP marketing, whatever it might be, but they don't have someone with your level of expertise or experience, and they don't have the data scientists, and they don't have any of those people. When you boil it down and really simplify it, what levers are you pulling? Is it simply, this is the budget I have to apply, these are the channels or strategies I choose to apply it at, and these are the people I need? Is it that simple, or are there other ways you're looking at these levers you can pull?
I don't know if it's that simple. There are so many ways to get the kind of talent that you need, even if you're a small company. And I would encourage people to do that. There are data scientists that are sitting out there that only want to work 2 hours a day and would be more than willing to do some analytics for you to help you understand how you're spending money and whether that money is working effectively for you or not. And I 100%, I am a data driven marketer. I started my career in finance. My best relationship in like the entire time that I've worked probably has been the CFO, because I know how to talk to the CFO. Like, I can go in and not, I think people really wrongly. And this is now when I will make the pitch for, marketing is more a science than it ever has been. People aren't sitting around going, let's just do this and let's see if it works out. You need to be intentional, because as soon as you're not intentional, what happens is you've spent or wasted money on something that actually wasn't effective for you. And if you have a small budget and if you don't have the right kind of levers in place, sometimes that's hard to recover from. And this is not to throw Red Lobster under the bus, but coming out with this now conversation that, hey, we shouldn't have done all you can eat shrimp, and that's the thing that took us under. I think, yeah, maybe that was a promotion that had its time and had its day, but clearly someone wasn't doing the analytics to see that was costing them more to have that type of promotion than it was bringing people in the door. So I am always going to err on the side of getting the information, getting the data, having someone do the analytics on it. That is the best way you can spend your money. Now, let's say we have that, making sure that you kind of cobble together the right people that have the expertise is important. And I know that you know this. One of my jobs that I had at when I was at Oracle was I ran pricing and licensing for the company for everything that the company sold. I don't care whether it was services, I don't care if it was software, I don't care if it was education, I don't care if it was financing, anything in the bill of material I was responsible for, my team and I. And people who bought toothpaste thought that they could price software. So people, because you have an experience with something, sometimes you think it's easier than what it is. And because you have familiarity, sometimes you just bring those opinions with you. And I think roles that people have familiarity with, like marketing or even like sales, people just think that they can just, let me just tell you how to do it. And there really is a bunch of expertise and data that goes into that. So I would always encourage people, no, it's not just kind of some resources and a few channels and let's post a few things on social media and hope it works out. I think you have to be pretty intentional about how you have a composite of what does your business landscape look like? What are the goals that you're trying to achieve in that landscape? And who should you be talking to? And how do you talk to them? And if you get those things right, you have a shot at being very successful.
Oh my goodness. This is such a great masterclass. I'm speaking with Jacqueline Woods, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at Teradata. I do have one final question for you.
Okay.
So if you had to boil it down to one single tip or strategy to help us sell more, what would be your advice?
You can tell that he didn't ask me that question before, because then I would have obviously had an automatic answer. But if I had to boil it down to one thing, I think it really does boil down to, do you truly understand the needs of the people or constituency that you are serving? Do you have the right product or service to meet those needs? And can you articulate that in a way that they understand that you, quote, and you alone are the best company to meet that need or help them solve that problem?
That is a fantastic answer, because you just basically broke down. And I said one thing, but you actually just said, go figure it all out. And if you crack that code, you will succeed.
Yeah, I think I don't ever think there's a silver bullet. And I think that most people somehow think that there's a silver bullet for things. And every time that I've investigated where someone thought that someone had a silver bullet, or they had the one trick pony, or that somehow they just came out of nowhere and they were the dark horse that no one knew about, and like all of a sudden they were the darling of Wall Street. When you really go investigate and really dig in, what you find is that generally it's someone who worked really hard, who laid the groundwork and foundation, who kind of figured out how to meet, kind of people where they were, and then just executed extraordinarily well. And if you find a situation where that's not true, Mark, let me know. Let me know, because I have not seen that yet.
So that was my talk with Jacqueline Woods. Now, to wrap up, I'm going to share my 3 biggest takeaways from this talk. Key takeaway number 1, you have to segment your audiences, your prospects, and your customers. Everybody shops differently. And so if you go out there to the market and you say, hey, we're going to set up our entire website, we're going to set up all of our marketing, we're going to set up the entire sales process based off of, let's say, products. We have different products we create. We have different services that we offer. And, you need accounting, we have accounting. You need an auditor, we have an auditor. You need metal fabrication, we do metal fabrication. That's all well and good for people who know exactly what they need and what they want and what they're looking for. But sometimes people don't buy that way. They don't research that way. They don't shop that way. Sometimes people need to understand, hey, I work in this type of role. What problems can you solve for me? I work at this seniority level. I work in this division or this department. I work in this industry. I have certain challenges. How can you solve them for me? You have certain products that I'm looking for. And so there are many different ways to slice it. There's no right or wrong combination. It depends on your business. It depends on your audiences or customers. And it depends on how you choose to market and generate leads and sell. But if you're only doing one thing, then you're only capturing one small slice of the pie. And so you don't want to offer so much segmentation that it confuses people. But if we can understand how people buy and how they shop, how they think and the problems that they have, their different seniority levels, their different roles, their different industries, their different products. And if you are able to create a choose your own adventure where people show up and they're able to see, oh, by industry, I think that way. Oh, by product type, by problem type, by seniority, by role, whatever it is. And if you offer all the solutions and you find people are more likely to click on a certain page, to be able to use a certain type of segmentation, you can in the future move all of your advertising, move all of your spend. You can move all of your focus to be able to make that sales process tighter and sharper. You can start to ignore some of the segmentation that's not working anymore. But if you never offer it to begin with, you're making buying, you're making lead gen, you're making the entire marketing and sales process harder than it needs to be for your customers and your prospects. Don't do that. Number 2, leverage the data and the analytics that is available to you. Every advertising platform, every social platform, everything you do on your website, every form of marketing today has data and analytics that are available to you. If you have a very clear goal, if you understand who you're speaking to and what they're doing on those platforms, on social, on marketing, on the spend, if you have a clear goal, if you have an expected outcome, and if these platforms give you the data and analytics you need to determine if it's working or not, then it's almost foolish to ignore this data that's sitting there. The data is there. The people to be able to help you figure out what it means and what you should do next, they are out there, and you can make smarter decisions. As Jacqueline mentioned, you can focus your spend on the things that are most important and providing the highest ROI. And over the long term, you will create this flywheel effect where more success leads to more success. Cutting wasted spend and applying that to the things that are most likely to work will lead to even more success. And you will build this flywheel effect where you can do so much more with so much less. And on top of that, what people hardly ever talk about is when things go sideways, when things go wrong, when things stop working, if you're looking at the data and analytics, you can respond to that really, really quickly. So there are so many benefits to just looking at the data and leveraging the analytics that are available to you on every single marketing platform. And key takeaway number 3, you have to balance strategy with tactics. Data is important. No one's going to argue data is not important. I just went on a rant about that. Data is important, but some marketing activities are so strategically important that even if you don't have the immediate payoff, if you don't have the immediate returns, the immediate ROI, or if you don't have even the data to prove whether it's working or not, sometimes participating in these industry events, for example, or simply being seen, it can reinforce that your company, that your brand, that your team, it can reinforce the presence. It can show that you're relevant. It can keep you top of mind with past and with current clients. And these things, while the data might not prove that they immediately pay off, we can look back over the decades before the data was there. We can look back over the last 100 years. And we know deep down in our gut that doing the right things consistently, being top of mind, showing up in front and staying relevant in front of our prospects and our customers, we know that this is the foundational element of all of our sales and all of our marketing. So there you have it. Those were my 3 biggest takeaways from this talk, but I'm curious, what were yours? Did anything challenge your perspective, your thinking? Let's dive deeper into this over on LinkedIn, where I like to share more insights and spark a conversation. My name is Mark Drager. You can find my contact details in the episode show notes. Now, while you're over on LinkedIn, be sure to give Jacqueline Woods a follow as well. She releases amazing content, and you can learn more about what she's doing with her company Teradata over at teradata.com. Now, one last thing. If you've made it this far into the show, you really should subscribe. Why? Well, you're obviously an ambitious B2B leader. You're this deep into the show. You're hungry for even more actionable strategies to grow your business, to boost sales, or maybe, I don't have such a big ego to say, maybe you just like the sound of my voice. I don't know. Either way, I am Mark Drager, and I will catch you in the next episode.